2025, the year Max Verstappen didn't lift the trophy. The year someone else stood on that final podium, champagne raining down, cameras flashing, the world watching a new champion crowned. And yet, when the votes were counted, when the people who actually understand Formula One had their say, Verstappen was named Driver of the Year. Not the champion, the driver. If you think that doesn't make sense, you're not alone. But by the end of this story, you'll understand why this wasn't a mistake. It was the most honest decision Formula One has made in years. Hit that subscribe button right now, because we're about to uncover the truth behind F1's most controversial vote of the decade. So how does the champion lose the award? And what does that tell us about greatness itself? The result was clean, simple, undeniable. Verstappen lost the 2025 World Championship. Someone else's name went into the history books. The season had a winner, and it wasn't him. But here's where it gets interesting. The people who voted for Driver of the Year, team principals, engineers, drivers, the ones who live inside the chaos of the paddock, they didn't vote for the champion. They voted for Verstappen. And that created a problem. Because in Formula One, we're taught one religion: titles equal greatness. Championships are the ultimate scoreboard. The final number next to your name is supposed to be the only number that matters. So when the award and the trophy go to different people, something fundamental breaks. But this wasn't sentiment. This wasn't nostalgia. This was recognition of something the TV cameras don't always show you. Because in 2025, Red Bull didn't give Verstappen the best car. And that single fact, it changes everything. The RB21 arrived broken. Balance issues from race 1. Development that fixed one problem but created 3 more. The car that had been a weapon became a compromise, a machine that fought back instead of obeyed. Verstappen was operating without the safety net ED had for years. No weekends where raw pace guaranteed victory. No dominance to hide behind. Every result required negotiation. Every point demanded perfection. Drop a subscribe to join the 10K journey, because what happens next will rewrite how you see Formula One greatness. Despite the car being flawed, Verstappen stayed in the fight. He didn't just collect points. He remained present. He showed up in conversations he statistically had no business being part of. Races where 5th place should have been the ceiling became podiums. Weekends that screamed damage limitation turned into genuine battles for wins. Qualifying sessions with a car lacking ultimate pace still produced front-row starts through tire management that bordered on witchcraft. So the paddock started watching something they hadn't seen in years: Verstappen without the advantage. And you know what they saw? The same guy, the same precision, the same relentless speed. But now, with every weakness exposed. Because when you remove dominance, contribution becomes visible. When the car stops doing half the work, you see exactly what the driver is actually worth. And the people inside F1? They couldn't unsee it. Here's the uncomfortable truth Formula One doesn't like to admit. Championships measure outcomes. Driver of the Year measures impact. Verstappen didn't win the title, but he elevated a flawed machine into championship contention when it had no right to be there. He turned races that should have been easy wins for rivals into wars that went down to the final lap. Most of 2025 wasn't about control. It was about response. Responding to deficits. Responding to compromised setups. Responding to a car that refused to do what his instincts demanded. There were no comfortable Sundays. No races where things just unfolded naturally. Every weekend was either damage limitation or overachievement. And pressure, sustained, grinding pressure, has a way of showing what performance actually costs. Smash that subscribe button to stay ahead of the F1 story everyone else is missing. Then came the comeback phase. When Red Bull finally sorted the car late in the season, Verstappen's response was immediate. Clinical. Devastating. No warm-up. No adjustment period. The performance ceiling returned the second the tools allowed it. And that revealed something critical. The ceiling was never gone. It was just waiting. With competitive machinery under him again, Verstappen separated. The dominance everyone remembered came roaring back. And that's when the debate sharpened. Because the contrast was too obvious to ignore. When the car helped, he dominated. When it didn't, he survived and thrived in ways that shouldn't have been possible. The relationship between drive and package became visible in both directions. Formula One doesn't like settling that debate definitively. So it doesn't. It just presents the evidence. and lets you decide. The people who voted for Verstappen weren't acting on reputation. They weren't rewarding past titles or handing out sympathy votes. They voted because they understood the difficulty level. Peers and experts in Formula One know what's hard. They know which points come from car advantage and which ones require something supernatural. They know the difference between executing from the front and surviving from the back. They reward what's hard. And in 2025, Verstappen carried weight no one else on the grid had to lift. But here's what made it legendary. He accepted the loss without defensiveness. No excuses. No PR scramble. No rewriting history to protect legacy. Just quiet acknowledgement that someone else won, and he didn't. That's security. Security doesn't argue. It doesn't need to reframe failure as success. And his reaction didn't read as defeat. It read as understanding. Hit subscribe and be part of the community that sees beyond the headlines. Because F1's real stories are written in moments like these. Because 2025 revealed something bigger than one season. For the first time in years, greatness stood alone. No structural advantage. No inevitability to lean on. No dominance to hide behind. What remained was presence, pressure, response. And the sport quietly admitted what Verstappen's existence does to a championship fight. So where does this leave us? Scenario 1. This vote becomes folklore. The season Verstappen lost the title but won the respect. A chapter that proves championships aren't the only measure, and maybe never were. Scenario 2. It fades. Next season, he wins again, dominance returns, and 2025 becomes a footnote. Just another year in a career defined by relentless victory. Scenario 3. This becomes the turning point. The moment F1 started valuing how you race, not just where you finish. The season that forced the sport to admit, the car matters more than we like to say. Which one plays out? Time will tell. But here's what we know for certain. Verstappen lost the 2025 championship. And the people who understand Formula One best still called him the driver of the year. So ask yourself, what does that really mean? Does it mean the vote was wrong? Or does it mean we've been measuring greatness wrong the entire time? In Formula One, titles tell you who finished first. Driver of the Year tells you who carried the weight. And if you've made it this far, you already know 2025 wasn't the season Max Verstappen failed. It was the season Formula One admitted what happens when greatness loses its armor. If you're part of the Orange Army, you already understood. If you're not, maybe now you do. Subscribe now, T. Oh, join 10K strong. Because the next chapter of this story, it's already being written.